I'm going to be talking to you about the connection between worrying and anxiety, and how it is critical if you want to quiet your anxiety, if you want to stop worrying, if you want to get control over what you're thinking about. It's going to begin with a habit that you have, that somebody else trained you, that you've gotten really good at this habit. And you know what the habit is? It's the habit of worrying. We all do it. We're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of, sorry, let me just move that a little bit. We're all guilty of worrying about things that are beyond our control, worrying about things that doesn't matter, worrying about things that we shouldn't care about. Sorry, I've got the streaming lights anymore. Hold on, let me just ask Mandy a question. Worrying about all kinds of things that you shouldn't worry about. And it becomes a habit. It becomes a default way of thinking. And so in order to kick off Anxiety Week, I want to explain the connection between worrying and why that impacts anxiety. And now, since we're talking about anxiety, I have to be very clear about something, okay? I am not a therapist. I am an individual who struggled personally with anxiety for more than 2 decades. I took Zoloft, which was a lifesaver, and I strongly believe in trying medication when a professional believes that you are so in a hole mentally that medication will give you the ability to start to claw your way out of that hole. I have learned so much about anxiety because of my own struggles, and 5 years ago, I trained myself to be a deliberate thinker, just like I'm training you to be a deliberate thinker in this program. And through everything that I am about to teach you, and all of the strategies that you're about to learn, I learned all of these by researching anxiety. And I road tested them on myself while I was still in therapy. And I then started going off of my medication. And as my mindset reset and as my thinking patterns became more positive and stronger and healthier, I was able to completely cure myself of anxiety. And I say that with the utmost of relief and confidence. And I have also gone on to use these exact same techniques that I'm going to teach you to help my children deal with their anxieties. I've written extensively about anxiety in the 5-Second Rule book, which is right behind me. We've sold almost 1 million copies of that book. It is the #1 self-published audiobook in the history of Audible. I'm so proud of it. And I speak at length about anxiety and using the 5-Second Rule to cure yourself of anxiety, okay? But I need to make it very clear that these training sessions are in no way a substitute for getting professional help. If you have the kind of clinical anxiety or you suffer from an anxiety disorder, it is paramount that you seek professional help from a therapist one-on-one, that you try remarkable therapies. I'm going to say it wrong, but it's EDRM or ERDM, which is the rapid eye movement therapy, incredibly helpful. And so don't be a hero. Don't go off your meds cold. Don't quit therapy because you think that this live training program is the answer. This live training program is a step. And this live training program for the next week in particular, while we talk about anxiety, you're going to be introduced to tools that are grounded in research and tools that have worked for millions of people and tools that you can take back to your therapist or take back to whatever counseling you get to help you become a deliberate thinker, which will help you quiet your anxiety, get control of it, and then ultimately cure it with the help of a professional if you have an anxiety disorder. So that said, please listen to everything that I'm about to tell you and try it, okay? Please try it because this stuff works if you practice it. And again, Quieting anxiety, it's not an event. It's not a one and done. This is a process that you are going to repeat over and over and over again, because the connection between anxiety and your mindset begins with your habit of worrying. We have a question from Twitter: is worrying the same as overthinking? If you're overthinking about positive stuff and keeping yourself in an excited state, no, it's not. If you're overthinking and the overthinking is you spinning scenarios in your mind that are negative, yes. Overthinking is another word when it's negative for worrying on overdrive. It means that you worry in loops and you keep repeating the worry over and over and over as if you were washing the same load of laundry over and over and over again. And so we're starting with the habit of worrying about things that don't matter, worrying about things that you can't control, worrying about things that haven't happened yet, worrying about things that are far off in the future. When you start to train yourself to think about things that are not in your control, or think about things that are statistically likely never to happen, that is when you can get into trouble. And that's why we're going to start with worrying. You see, worrying is when you allow your mind to default on autopilot and think about things that don't serve you. Think about things that are outside of your control. I'm going to give you an example that's very recent in my life. So I don't know, there were a bunch of you that noticed in the live streams that were on January 6th and January 7th, and I think January 5th. Many of you noticed that I had a lot of discoloration on my neck, and I had what appeared to be a lump. And my own dermatologist pointed it out to me, that I had a lump that was kind of like right here. Now, the second that somebody says lump, what are your thoughts default to automatically? The second somebody says you got a lump on your neck, cancer, of course. I've got some sort of disease that's going to kill me. And so what do I do when my thoughts go there? Well, then I start touching it and I start poking at it and I start pinching at it. And then I start asking everybody, do you see this lump on my neck? And asking people if they see a lump, that's a proactive action. That's a good idea. But the bad thing to do is to let your thoughts then default to thinking that you have cancer, to thinking that there's something wrong, to thinking that you're going to die, to thinking that this is going to be a major problem, to thinking that there's an emergency right now. And the problem with allowing your thoughts to go that way is because when you start to think about things, first of all, it's outside of my control if this is cancer or not. It's outside of my control right now if this is going to kill me. It's outside of my control right now whether or not a week from now when I go see my doctor, they're going to diagnose what is in my neck. Full disclosure, I saw my doctor. There's nothing wrong with me, okay? So if you allow your thoughts to constantly drift to the worst case scenario, what's going to happen as your thoughts spiral is your body is going to pick up on the fact that your thoughts are negative. Your body's going to pick up on the fact that your brain is worried. And what's going to happen if you allow your thoughts to spiral the way that mine started to about this silly little lump on my neck is that you will start to trigger agitation in your body. So when you start thinking negative things up here, you're going to start feeling negative things in here. You might feel a pit in your stomach. You might actually start to sweat. Your heart might start to race. Your throat might get tight. Your hands might get clammy. These are all telltale signs that you have now crossed from simply worrying in your mind to feeling physical agitation, which is anxiety. So that's the relationship between worrying about something, which is thinking negative thoughts about things that are outside your control, and anxiety, which is when those worries become physical agitation in your body caused by your thoughts. That's it. And so it's critical for you, if you have anxiety, if your kids have anxiety, if you're a chronic worrier, if you lay awake at night thinking about all these things that you need to do, we're going to go through all of this and all kinds of things that you can do to start to address this. It is critical that you understand that there is a connection between the day-to-day anxiety that many of you feel. We're not talking about anxiety disorders here. We're talking about the day-to-day anxiety that you feel that is triggered by the worries in your own head, that is triggered by the overwhelm that you feel in your life. This is anxiety that you can quiet. This is anxiety that you can get control of, because this form of anxiety is all triggered by your habit of worrying about things beyond your control. Worrying about whether or not your boss is going to snap at you. Worrying about whether or not your spouse is going to be in a bad mood when you walk in. Worrying about things that you can't necessarily control. And so here's the thing that you want to do. When you have a worry, for example, being worried about a lump in your neck is a good thing because it'll get you to take action. So the second that I confirmed and I looked at the screenshots that many of you sent me and I checked it out in the mirror, that I had a little something right here, I made an appointment with my doctor. And then you know what I did for the rest of the week? I practiced the tools that we've already covered in videos 1 through 11. I practiced the tools of autopilot versus deliberate thinking. You see, you worry when you're on autopilot. When you direct your thoughts and you're deliberate, you're now in control of what you're doing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Mindset Reset, the playlist on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And on video number 2 is all about autopilot versus deliberate thinking. So I would catch myself when I'd start to think about the lump. And I would go, nope, I'm not going to worry about that because I can't control it. I'll find out on my doctor's appointment if there's anything that I need to be concerned about. Until then, I'm going to not think about that. I'm going to think about this. And so day 4, when we talked about thinking this and not that, so this is video number 4, I used those tools all this week, everybody, in order to make sure that I didn't allow my habit of worrying about some lump on my neck turn into anxiety that I started to feel in my body. Does this make sense? Give me a thumbs up if this is making sense. And by directing my thoughts, so whenever I'd start to think, oh, there's that lump, and I'd start to touch it again, which of course makes it bigger, I would go, wait a minute, hold on, nope, I'm not going to think about this. I'm not going to worry about this. I'm going to be deliberate, and I'm going to think that I'm okay. And I started to train myself to go, I'm not going to worry about it until I have something to worry about. I'm going to make a doctor's appointment, and I will worry about it when there's something to worry about it. But for now, I'm just going to assume that it's totally fine, that there's nothing there, that maybe it's an insect bite or something like that that's gotten inflamed, and that's that. And you know what? It works. It works. And let's say that when I went to my doctor's appointment on Thursday, I got a bad diagnosis. Well, guess what? Then there are decisions to make. Then there are things to be concerned about. I still am going to have to manage my worries, because if I start to allow myself to get anxious about a negative situation, I'm going to make it worse for myself, okay? Your anxiety and your worrying doesn't change the things you need to do to address any problem in your life or potential problem. But worrying and causing yourself anxiety will make the potential problem worse, because you are going to make yourself feel worse. So it all begins with you and being deliberate about what you will allow yourself to think about and what you will not allow yourself to think about.
In this video, I'm going to show you the specific way that you can use the 5-second rule to stop doubting yourself and worrying so much. Now, a lot of people will tell you, oh, just think positive, or try not to worry. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. And the reason why it's not easy is because it doesn't work. And actually, research shows that when you try to ignore your worries, it can actually make them worse. Look, I understand this topic more than most people because I struggled for decades, not only with worrying and self-doubt, I actually suffered from anxiety and panic attacks for almost 25 years. And in fact, I took Zoloft for 2 decades to control my anxiety. Using the 5-second rule, I've not only been able to stop worrying and doubting myself, I've cured myself of anxiety, and I've been off meds for more than 4 years. I'm panic attack free, and I almost never, ever worrying about anything. And you can teach yourself to do the exact same thing using the rule. First, here's what I want you to know. You're not a worrier. A lot of us call ourselves a worrier, right? Oh, I'm a worrier. You're not a worrier. You have a habit of worrying. That's a very big difference. You've allowed your mind to drift and linger on negative thoughts so many times, it's now a pattern of behavior that you repeat, and you don't even realize it. And that's actually good news, because that means that you and I can use the science of habits to break the habit of worrying and the habit of doubting yourself. In the language of habit research, the 5-second rule is what psychologists call a starting ritual. It's a tool that you can use that will interrupt the negative thought patterns that are encoded in your brain as habits and trigger positive new thought and behavior patterns. The 5-second rule is shockingly effective because it works with all the latest research about habits. What I've learned using the 5-second rule is that I do in fact have control over what I think. And when you use the 5-second rule, you'll discover that you do too. Here's how you're going to use the rule. The moment that you feel your thoughts drift, and have you ever noticed how worrying and self-doubt, they have a way of literally like taking you away from a situation. You can feel your mind go from the present moment to drifting to something negative. Maybe you're sitting at a meeting at work and suddenly you start talking down at yourself and doubting yourself. It happens like that. But the moment that you catch yourself do it, that's a moment of tremendous power. You have a decision to make. You can either sit there and listen to the worry and listen to the self-doubt and let it hijack you, or you can make a decision to assert control. That's when you use the rule. You're going to use the countdown trick, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's essential. Counting backwards interrupts the negative thought pattern. It's also going to awaken your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that you need to override a bad habit and replace your bad habit with a positive new one. So every time you feel your thoughts drift to something negative, or you find yourself worrying about things you can't control, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it'll switch the gears in your brain, it'll interrupt the negative thought pattern, it'll activate your prefrontal cortex, and you've just created a starting ritual that will prime your mind to accept a more positive thought. That is how you use the rule to change. Some days you might use the rule 20 times to interrupt your habit of worrying and doubting yourself.
How do I stop myself from worrying about kids and young adults drinking at night and getting killed by drunk drivers? This was a huge one for me. I worry about this. So there's a difference between worrying about it and managing it. So that is a real concern. That is a real issue that we as parents have to deal with. The issue that if kids are at partying and there is somebody there with keys, that they could get into a car with somebody who's been drinking, that they themselves could drive a car while they've been drinking. And I'm not proud to admit this, but growing up in Western Michigan, we did a lot of that. Very small town, rural area. We were always heading out to Lake Michigan. There was a friend of our family who was killed by a drunk driver when I was in high school. And so I'm going to tell you something. As a parent, this is an issue that I am maniacal about. And instead of worrying and keeping myself up, worrying whenever they're out, and my thoughts do drift to this. I'm not going to lie to you. They will drift to this. You're a parent. It is impossible to not have your thoughts drift to things that concern you about the well-being of your children. But what I have chosen to do from a very young age is to put absolute, critical, non-negotiable blocks in place. So my kids always take an Uber. Always. They don't even drive to parties. That is something that I will pay for because I am so adamant that I don't want them drinking and driving. I also have them text me when they're on their way home. I have them come in and wake me up when they've gotten home. So for you, what I would ask yourself if you continue to worry about it is, first of all, do you have the controls and the agreements in place with your kids that you actually trust? And if not, you need to get those in place and you need to reinforce them and you need to get to a point with your kids where you trust them. And I'm going to tell you something. Your kids just promising that they're not going to drink, that's not one that you can trust. Doesn't matter how good your kids are, doesn't matter what your value system is as a family, kids will experiment. And so you have to have a plan. And so the thing that's interesting about this question is that having your thoughts drift is normal. Allowing it to be chronic is a choice. And there's two things that you got to do. You got to make sure that you have taken the steps to solve the problem that concerns you. And number two, that you redirect your thoughts every time you start to worry. And the other thing is that you got to ask yourself a question about whether or not you trust that your kids are doing what you're asking of them. And if not, that's a different set of actions to take in order to make sure that they really get it. I mean, I've told my kids the story of being woken up by my mother in the middle of the night when I was like in 9th grade and her putting her arms around me and sobbing in the middle of the night and telling me Michael Lang had been killed in a drunk driving accident. I remember that. That is like in my nervous system. I have told my kids that story. And so I have put controls in place that are appropriate for my kids' ages, and it's been working. Does that mean I never worry about it? Of course not. I'm a parent. But I don't worry myself to a point where I feel anxious. If I have a concern, I will call one of them. If I ever find out that they have broken our agreement, they will not see the light of day for literally a year. All right, let's go to Tiffany Winfield Alexander. How does this work when dealing with a loved one with a chronic illness? How it works is you got to choose what you are willing to worry about and not. You will not change your loved one's chronic illness by worrying. And you will also rob yourself of precious, precious time that you have with them while they're here. And there is nothing more powerful than being present and being grateful that the time that you have, and worrying will steal that from you. And so I think it's important to be deliberate about managing the things that you need to manage related to the chronic illness. It's important to be diligent about noticing changes in someone's state that need to be addressed when you're dealing with a chronic illness. But it is a mistake to let worrying rob you of being present and rob you of the joy and the gratitude that you can feel for the time that you have with this person that has a chronic illness. I hope that distinction lands, because it's a really powerful and very, very important one. That does not diminish the real commitment and the tax that it takes on you emotionally when you're caring for somebody with a chronic illness. But what I'm talking about is the difference between letting your worrying, which will not change anything, rob you of the things that really matter while you're with this person. And you can train yourself not to worry about the things that you can't control while still being deliberate and on top of managing the details and any changes, so that you take the steps that you need in order to change somebody's care or address something. Okay? Awesome. Getting a few of the financial worry ones. All right. How do you train yourself not to worry about finances? With 3 kids and so much on our plate, how can I stop with the worry? Well, let me ask you a question. And this is going to sound rude, wife, mother, nurse. Does worrying make you more money? Does worrying save you money? Does worrying do anything proactive at all? This is very similar to the piece of advice that I just gave to the person who was living with somebody with a chronic illness. There's a difference between having something that you spot that's wrong and then taking deliberate action to solve it or address it, and wasting time, energy, and your health spinning worries about a situation and also doing nothing to change it. So one of the reasons why, if you're somebody that worries about finances, it is critical that you reset your mindset, is because worrying about money is not going to help you make more money. You need to start to visualize a couple years out. Don't necessarily visualize massive trips or something that feels unattainable. You don't need to be standing in front of a Lamborghini to make a little bit more money and not feel the stress that you're feeling. But I want you to go to a moment in time. This is, again, video number 1, the science of visualization. Anchor yourself out to a time in your life, a year or 2 years from now, where you have where you have financial relief, where things aren't so tight, where you have the ability to save, you have the ability to breathe a little bit, okay? And I want you to feel the positive emotion that comes from knowing that you did the work to change your financial situation. So visualization is a very important thing. The second thing is that I would ask you is, what is it that you need to do that you currently don't have the time or are too afraid or actively tell yourself you don't know how to do it? What are the things that you need to do, the action steps you need to do in order to address your financial situation? Do you need to get a side hustle? Do you need to stick to a budget? Do you need to downsize? Do you need your kids, if they are of a certain age, to get a job so they make their own spending money? What is it that you could be doing to ease the burden? What are the actions? And I'm saying this because what you often find, and what I have found true in my own life, is that worrying about something is easier than fixing it. And worrying about something is, in many ways, something that I used to do in order to hide from having to put myself out there and take the necessary actions, whether it was asking for a raise or cutting back on things that I was spending on that I couldn't afford. That is the real question to ask yourself. And here's the other thing. Since worrying about finances isn't going to make you more money, if you were to stop worrying and if you were to start thinking positive in your ability to fix this, and you were to lower that level of stress in your body, what would you be able to find the time to try? I would start there. Totally start there with visualization and that. Here we go. Your teaching just helped me. This is Lisa. My daughter, 24, is planning to go on a study abroad to Morocco. I'm so happy for her, but my SIL, I don't know what that means, sister-in-law, introduced fear to my experience by telling me how dangerous it is there. I observed my own fear creep or roar in. Not fun. I caught it, became aware of the choice I have for how to think. I'm happy for her. Again, it's natural, but not necessary for me to worry. Exactly. So in that situation, here's what I would suggest. If you are concerned about her going to Morocco, okay? Here's the difference between worrying about something and having the worry hijack you and become a default, and worrying like you just did and having that worry be a signal to get deliberate and take action on something. Not action up here, worrying about Morocco, but action in taking steps to address something that could be a concern. So what I would do is I would call the program she's going on and I would have a conversation with them. And the other thing that I would do is I would talk to your daughter about what you need from her so that you don't worry. Do you need a check-in every couple days? Do you need her to text you photos? Do you need, when she gets there, if she's staying with a family, to FaceTime with the family? Do you need to reach out to your network and have a friend of a friend of a friend identified that lives in Morocco? So in the case of something, you have somebody to call. You know, I can think of an example where this put me completely at ease. My daughter, our oldest daughter, lived in Phnom Penh in Cambodia with her grandmother. Now, her grandmother was 70 at the time. Our daughter was in 8th grade, and she was going to live over there with her for 3 months, helping her grandmother teach English. And I started to think, holy cow, am I crazy? I'm letting her go halfway around the world. She's going to be with a woman who's getting older. What if, something happens to the grandmother? What if our daughter suddenly finds herself alone in a country? The grandmother's had a heart. Like, you can see, your mind starts to spin. My stomach starts to panic. Oh my God, you can't go, you can't go. Like the worries turn into a roar. So what we did is we identified a contact in Cambodia through a friend of a friend, and we had a FaceTime call with him and his family before they went. And this was also somebody that the grandmother knew, so that if we had an emergency, our daughter had somebody that we knew that was in touch with her that she could reach locally, so that we had a plan B in the event that something happened. Having a plan B like that is just magical, because you know that you've thought through the concern, you've taken action to put something in place so that the concern is addressed, and you don't need to worry about it now. If there's a problem, we'll figure it out. If there's something catastrophic that happens, we have a plan B. And that did wonders for me. And we also FaceTimed with her every other day, which also did wonders for me. Let me think. Amber from Facebook. What is something I can do to stop worrying? How do I start to break this habit? It's killing me. I'm so glad you asked. Because I apologize that this training has been so long. Because I'm just now getting to the homework. First of all, I want you to realize something. This is a habit. A habit's just a pattern. That's it. And every day during Anxiety Week, we are going to be building on everything that we're learning. So what you're learning today is the connection between your worrying about things and how it triggers your body to start to feel agitated, and that's when anxiety sets in, okay? And when your body starts to get agitated, that's when it usually really impacts your actions. And so it's critical that we start with the habit of worrying. So your homework for today is to simply write down the things that you worry about. And some of you may have 100 things. In fact, in the comments, why don't you start to write for us, what is it that you worry about? Because I guarantee you, as you see people write down what they worry about in the comments, you're gonna be like, yep, me too. Oh, yep, me, I worry about that one. Oh, yep, when my boss gets it, yep, Oh, when my spouse starts shrinking, oh yeah, I got that one too. Oh, yep, when my kids are out, yep, yep, oh, I worry about that. Yep, I worry about running out of money. I worry about this, I worry about that. And you'll be amazed how often your mind isn't even right here with you and me. That your mind is thinking about some moment in the future when you're going to lose all your money. Or your mind is thinking about the fact that, holy cow, I haven't heard from my spouse in a couple hours. I wonder if they're dead. Or your mind is worried about what you're going to do on Thursday when you go to that doctor's appointment. Being a deliberate thinker means, when your mind defaults to something in the future that's negative or something that you can't control, we're going to yank it right back to this moment. And we're either going to visualize something positive, or we're going to think this other thing that makes me settle, that gives me control. The first step is writing down everything that you worry about. If you want to take the assignment a step further, you can start to write down things that you could think instead of the worry. Another thing that you could do with this list of worries is, and this is what we're going to build on tomorrow, is now that you have a list of worries, we're going to start to coach you to understand that your worries are typically things that need some form of action for you. They need some problem solving. They need some system in place. They need some plan B that you don't have now that's going to make you feel like that thing that concerns you, you've at least put down something that makes you feel a little bit better about it, okay? The other thing that we're going to talk about tomorrow is we're going to talk about triggers. This is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. We're going to talk about how there are triggers all day long that trigger you to worry and you don't even realize it. Everything from people to time of day to people's tone of voice. And so we're going to talk to you all about going through and identifying triggers in your day. This is absolutely incredible. So Amber, how do you stop worrying? First, let's identify what you're worrying about, okay? Then we're going to just go step by step by step. We're going to coach you on how you identify the things you worry about, and then we're going to talk about what are the things you're not doing. What are the things you need to do in that area so that you have put controls in place so that the worry is unwarranted? What is an anchor thought? An anchor thought is a extremely powerful and proven way for you to take control of what you're thinking about when your mind starts to spiral. And an anchor thought is any thought that makes you excited, happy, think positive emotions here. I'm going to give you examples, don't worry. An anchor thought is something that you have predetermined and planned in advance that you're going to go to in your mind and picture. This is like a form of visualization in a situation where normally you feel anxiety. And you're going to use this practice of having a predetermined anchor thought in situations that make you nervous or anxious to go to as a method to anchor yourself down, to calm down your body, and to take control of what you're thinking about in situations that normally make you anxious. So let me give you a couple examples of what a anchor thought is and why you want to do them before a situation. So you can use anchor thoughts for everything from anchoring yourself in a positive vision as you're getting out of bed and thinking about the day ahead. And instead of letting your worries, anxiety, overwhelm, and nerves about dealing with your boss or facing the conflict in your house or whatever it may be, hijack your mind, you're going to anchor yourself in something positive and exciting about today. And if you can't think of anything positive and exciting about today, I'm going to coach you through that. Don't worry. If you have anxiety about work, you're going to anchor down on a moment from your past or a moment that you're excited about in your future that made you happy or excited. If you have anxiety about school, I want you to think about a thing about school that you like. One person, one teacher, one moment in your past where you did really good because you put in the effort and you got a really good grade on a test, or you felt really excited about what you were learning. And your anchor thought is going to be, I'm so excited to feel that way again. I'm going to give you a very specific example now. So I use anchor thoughts to deal with. I used to be an incredibly nervous flyer. I was convinced that if I got on a plane, I was going to die in a plane crash. And for the entire week leading up to getting on a plane, I would be nervous about it. I would be thinking about it. I would be thinking about sending, like if we were going away for the holidays, I would be thinking about sending the presents ahead via the mail in case the plane crashed. I'd be doing all kinds of like I was like a nutcase about this. And so the way that I started using anchor thoughts in order to change the way that I thought and felt on a plane is this. I would think about, before I got on a plane, I would think about something that I was excited to do once I got to the place that I was flying to. So for example, tomorrow I am flying to Vegas. and I'm going to think about a particular restaurant that I love in Vegas. And I'm going to think about what I'm going to order when I get to that restaurant. And I'm going to think about how delicious it's going to taste. And this person, my friend Mo, that I'm going to see. And so I've got my anchor thought, which makes me happy and excited, what I'm going to do when I get to Vegas. And when I get on that plane, and if I start to get nervous and my stomach starts to rumble and my body starts to feel anxious and my thoughts start to spiral, I immediately start saying to myself, I am so excited to get to Vegas and to go to that restaurant and to see my friend Mo, and notice I'm closing my eyes because I'm visualizing it. And I'm visualizing how happy I'm going to be when I see her. And that very specific, positive, excited, happy visualization of what I'm going to do when I get to Vegas, it settles my body, having that in my mind. It focuses my mind on something positive. And I, by using an anchor thought to weigh me down in terms of weigh down what I'm thinking about, and direct my body sensations to be positive, something crazy happens. When the plane's flying and we hit turbulence, and normally I'd be like, oh my God, we're about to die. Oh, what's happening? What's happening? I interrupt that anxiety response and that worry, and I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, using the 5-second rule, and awakening my prefrontal cortex. And then I literally just go, I'm so excited to be at that restaurant tonight to see my friend Mel. And here's what happens in my body. By taking control of my thinking, I change my body state. I've directed my thoughts. I've won the mental game. And my mind goes, oh, yeah, she's excited. And here's what's really interesting about it. Normally, if I were on a plane and I got nervous, the plane starts to bounce, right? So what happens? Immediately your mind starts to worry. Then your body starts to feel anxious because your mind is so busy worrying about whether or not the plane makes it. And then because your body is now starting to get anxious and you got a pit in your stomach and your armpits are starting to sweat and your heart is starting to race, the body sensations that were caused by your mind thinking worries are now getting worse, and now the worries get worse. So it becomes this self-fulfilling thing. And you actually make yourself miserable. You cause the anxiety from your thoughts. And then your body, in the anxiety response, then causes your thoughts to get even worse. And it becomes worse and worse and worse until you're hyperventilating or convinced you're going to die, or you start crying, or whatever it may be. You can interrupt that and win the mental game and take control. I'm not kidding you, by deciding to. And you can say, I'm 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not going to think about dying right now. And first of all, it's not going to help. I mean, I'm not flying the plane, so I'm going to take control of what I'm thinking about so I'm not miserable as we're flying. And drop in the anchor thought. Anchoring you down. Even the word anchoring has a strength to it. Instead of your thoughts drifting all over the place, you're anchoring down and you're making your mind do exactly what you want it to do. And what I want it to do is to think about what I'm excited about when I get to Vegas. Because here's the thing about it. If I go to that restaurant and I see my friend Mo, obviously the plane made it. And so one of the other things that's powerful about an anchor thought is because your anchor thoughts relate to what you're doing, it makes sense to your brain, so your brain believes it. So going back to the example of work, think of a moment when you were proud. School, think of a moment when you were proud. And tell yourself, I'm excited to feel that way again, or I'm excited to do well on this test, or I'm excited to learn what I'm going to learn, or I'm excited to have this conversation with my professor, or get this test over with and feel good again. And because the anchor thought that you're creating is related to what you're doing, it is going to make sense to your brain, your body will settle, you're going to get control of your mind, and that is how you win the mental game. You notice when your thoughts drift, you notice when the worries are starting, and you, boom, cut it off with an anchor thought. Let me give you another example, and then we're going to go into questions. Because what I want you to do for every single trigger you have, we had you yesterday in video 14 go through your day and come up with every single trigger that triggers your thoughts to spiral to the negative. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the power and the science of anchor thoughts, something that we can think of that you can anchor down on that is positive, happy, exciting, encouraging, about somehow related to the thing that's triggering you. And I'm going to walk you through some examples. I want to give you another one, though, for those of you that have kids that are watching. So when my son, our son was younger, he used to be completely anxious about sleepovers. There was just something about sleepovers that really freaked him out. And so before sleepovers, we would come up with an anchor thought that was related to the sleepover itself. So what are you excited to do in the morning? Now, notice I said the morning. The reason why we would always do the mornings is because he wasn't nervous about starting the sleepover. He was nervous about completing it. So we came up with an anchor thought that was about what he was excited to be doing in the morning. Were they going to make pancakes? Were they going to lay around and play Fortnite? And that anchor thought about what made him excited about what he was going to do in the morning, it was his go-to. So as we were driving over and he'd start to look at me and go, I don't know, Mom, I'm a little nervous. I'm like, great, let's go to the anchor thought. And he's like, okay, here we go. I'm really excited to have pancakes because she makes great pancakes. Great, that's great. And then all of a sudden his body stations would drop down. The other thing that I would recommend that you do with kids is come up with the anchor thought for all the things that trigger them and also come up with a plan B. So a plan B is, okay, so you've got your anchor thought, my dear. You're excited about the pancakes. If it's 9 o'clock at night and you start to get that rumbling feeling in your stomach and you start to get worried about being at the sleepover, no problem. You're going to use your anchor thought, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm so excited for pancakes in the morning. And that's going to settle your stomach, and it's also going to distract your thoughts and direct them and anchor them. And that should start to take care of the rumbling feelings in your stomach, and that should start to take care of the things that are making you nervous. And then what we're going to do is you're also going to have a plan B. So with our son, for example, and this is important with anxiety, always go to the worst case scenario and plan out, okay, so let's say the worst case scenario happens. Let's say you decide you can't make it through the night. No problem. Just call me and I'll come get you. So that you're taking away worries. If you have to talk to your boss and you got your anchor thought, you're really excited. Here's another thing. If you obsess about getting fired, you obsess about being made wrong, come up with like your plan B, which is like, okay, I've got my thing. I'm so excited to go in there. I'm so excited to actually say what I need to say. I'm so excited for the situation to change. I'm so excited to make a difference with my work. And my ultimate plan B, let's say I get fired tomorrow for speaking what I speak. What's the first thing I'm going to do? What's my plan if that happens? I'm going to collect my stuff. I'm going to say goodbye to my friends. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to look for a job. That's what's going to happen. Because if you go to the worst case scenario and you make a plan for what you're going to do, it's another way to sort of backstop your mind from catastrophizing. All right, how can I manage financial worries with an anchor thought? Gio, excellent question. So how you manage them is I want you to forecast 2 years from now, and don't be thinking about a Lamborghini. Be thinking about something that is be thinking about a vision that is something that you believe that you can accomplish. Maybe you want to save up money to take the kids to Disney World. Maybe you want to save up money to be able to put down a down payment on your first house. Maybe you want to pay off your student loans. Maybe you want to pay off your credit card debt. Maybe you want to get $10,000 in savings. Whatever it may be, something that is achievable. So, not like you're drinking some sort of magic potion and suddenly you win the lottery, but something that's achievable through consistent effort. Think about 2 years out, and your anchor thoughts are all around how proud you're going to feel when you've achieved this goal. And the reason why you want to go, I'm really excited, so that for 2 years from now, when I can look at my bank account and see this, I'm really excited. I'm going to feel so proud of myself that 2 years from now, I can look back and see that I've done the work. And the reason why this anchor thought's so important is getting anxious and worried about your financial situation isn't going to help you. If worrying about it motivates you to get into action and be disciplined and take the consistent actions you need in order to change it, then worry. But for most of us, the worrying is counterproductive. What would be a lot better is to keep your attitude and your mindset positive and push yourself to continue to take the daily actions. Because let's face it, positive thinking alone is not going to change your financial situation. You must take action. I want your positive mindset to be an asset so that it helps you stay motivated to take action because you see where you're headed and you see why it's important for you to make that phone call you've been avoiding today. Not out of fear, not out of scarcity, but because you know that by making that phone call to advance your side hustle 2 years from now, you can visualize that you actually are going to have done the incremental work to make this thing happen.
Okay, so I wanted to make this video because I know in some area of your life, you are wanting to start something, you're wanting to put yourself out there more, and you are holding yourself back. And one place that I see this playing out all the time is the fact that so many people, probably you, are self-conscious and nervous about putting videos online. You're self-conscious and nervous about talking about your business or sharing the breakthroughs that you're having or just showing up in a bigger, bolder, more self-expressed way because heck, it makes your life more fun when you do. And so you have this deep yearning to be doing more. And then I know exactly what happens to you. You look at the number of people that follow you. You then say, who the hell am I to say that? You then go, nobody's going to watch it anyway. And I want to share with you brand new research that blows that lame excuse, although normal excuse, right out of the water. It was published literally this month from Ohio State University, and it proves that when it comes to video content, the video content that people find compelling has nothing to do with the number of views that it has. It has to do with the person and the message that's being communicated. To be compelling, to make an impact, to be influential, because I know everybody wants to raise their influence and their visibility and to show up in bigger ways. It is all about the message, and you're in control of that. Do you communicate with passion? Do you have conviction about what you're talking about? You could be talking about, I don't know, whether you like white cords or these like black cords with this end, or whether you like this kind of end or this end, or where you like this cap, or whether you, I love to drink this way because I have a big nose, and then this way. And I'm telling you, you don't have to have this thing on. You could literally talk about anything. And if you bring passion and you bring conviction to what you're talking about, people will pay attention. That's what real influence is. It's the ability to show up in ways and have conviction and passion about the things that you believe in. Whether you're talking about a water bottle cap or you're talking about how to be healthier, happier, or more effective in your life. So enough with the excuses, enough with worrying about how many followers you have or whether or not Aunt Sue is gonna like the video or not or what people are gonna think. The only thing that matters is the conviction and passion that you communicate with, and of course, getting started. So based on the research, get started, put that video out, and why don't you tag me in it so I can give you a thumbs up when you do?
Worrying is wasting time. It's robbing you of what you want to do in your life, and it's making you suffer in a needless way. Look, I don't want you to get to the end of your life and look back and think, I wish I hadn't wasted so much of my precious life on stuff that didn't matter. I wish I didn't let all that stupid worrying keep me from doing the things that I always dreamt about doing. I'm here to tell you that you can learn how to switch your thoughts to something more productive and optimistic. This is great news. Worry is a hackable thing. And I'm going to use a ton of science and proven experience to show you just how to hack it using one magical tool. And here's the great news. Once you learn how worry starts, you can use that knowledge to make it stop. You can practice this magical tool every day to quiet your mind. I mean, just imagine that. A quiet mind. Wow. I know exactly how you feel. I mean, I know how exhausting and frustrating it is to constantly be trapped in the grinding cycle of worrying about everything. How do I know this? I lived it. I've always been worried. I mean, if you could be a baby that worries, that was me. I'm sure at 11 months, when my mom was running late to heat up my pureed carrots and potatoes, I was probably thinking, is she coming back? Where is she? I'm starving. I mean, I might just starve to death here. I think she hates me. She's left. Maybe she's angry about the face I made as I tried the pureed snow peas for lunch. Oh my gosh, what do I do? I have to find a new family to feed me. How am I going to find my new family? I got no connections, no money. I'm wearing a diaper. I can't even walk yet. I'm going to starve to death in the next 24 hours. That was baby Mel. And that was just the beginning. I mean, I was just kind of warming up for a life of worry on a very elite professional level. You know, as a little kid, I worried about everything from the teacher's reaction to whether or not the kid in the stall next to me was going to hear me fart. When I got to middle school, it was all about whether or not my tough skin jeans were cool or my acne or my new perm that I immediately regretted. When I was in college, I was worried if I studied enough for the test, if I was going to flunk out, if I was going to go blind from the grain alcohol I drank from the garbage can at that frat party. I worried if I had enough gas in the car to get to the grocery store. The truth about worrying is, once you let it start to spin, it just spins out of control. I'm sure you know this. I mean, worry has tormented me since I was a kid. It tormented me as a teen, in my 20s, my 30s, hell, my 40s. And if I can go from having this worry as my torturous default and learn how to interrupt it and redirect it and program a positive mind, you can too. Here's exactly what you need to do about worry and overthinking. Here's the magical tool I want to share with you. And I got to give you a warning. This is going to sound so simple. You might even start worrying that it's not going to work. That's why I have strung along this episode like it's an infomercial about worrying, because the solution is so simple, and it has to be. When it comes to your habit of worrying, you already overcomplicate everything. If I give you 3 steps to remember, you won't do any of them. That's how good you are at worrying. I need you to have something simple. So I've come up with this incredible way to do hand-to-hand combat with your worrying mind. Are you ready? Good. The second you catch yourself worrying, when you feel your mind spin, when you feel your shoulders pinch up towards your ears like new earrings and you feel your jaw clench, and wait, there's more. You feel yourself starting to get heavy and paralyzed and defeated, and those worries start to spin in your mind. Here's exactly what you're going to do. It's just 6 magical words. It encapsulates incredible research. It's so simple. You can do it. And don't worry, it's going to work. Here are the 6 magical words you're going to say to yourself every time you worry. What if it all works out? That's it. What if it all works out? Look, I know what you're thinking. You feel let down right now. That's because you're worried it's not going to work. But what if it all works out? What if these simple, stupid 6 words actually work? What if trying this works out? You just heard me say the words. What if it all works out? And you know what your response was? Well, I don't think it's going to work out. That's why I'm worrying. You got to trust me on this. Your worries sound just as dumb as this magical tool does. You have just listened to your worry for so long that you believe it. Now, I said this was hand-to-hand combat. You don't just throw one punch. You're going to have to keep on punching. Every time one of your stupid worries pop into your head, what if I don't get the apartment? What if I don't lose the weight? What if I don't get the raise? What if I look stupid my first day of work? What if nobody ever loves me? What if the swamp monster kills me? You need to punch those stupid worries in the face with 6 magical words, because this simple question breaks the pattern of worrying. Because if you think about worrying always begins with what if. In fact, my daughter used to call her worries the what if loop. I feel like I'm trapped in a what if loop, Mom. Well, guess what? You're trapped in a what if loop too. So you need just one fast perfectly placed, boom, counterpunch. You need the same punch for every worry. So you get really good at punching every worry in the face. And that punch is, what if it all works out? That's the counterpunch you need to knock absolutely any worry and all overthinking away. It's pretty incredible. I'm here to tell you, in those moments when you get trapped in this, what if this, what if that, what if that, and you start spinning, you got to stop it. And the fastest way to stop the spinning is to say, well, what if it all works out? What if I get the apartment? What if I pass the test? What if the doctor says something and it's okay? What if he doesn't break up with me? What if he breaks up with me and it all works out? What if I get bad news and it all works out and I'm okay? It's a way to get back the feeling of control. You see, the research shows that when you feel out of control, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain behind your forehead, the part that's in charge of organizing information and making decisions, it basically stops working when you feel out of control. And that's why it's so hard to make decisions, and it's why it's hard to move ahead. You just get stuck in this dark mental loop because you literally are so focused on things not working out that you don't have anything positive to grab onto. What if it all works out? Gives you something positive to hold on to. It gives your brain the ladder out of a dark hole of worry. And all you have to do is step on the first rung. Because the first rung on that ladder out of that dark hole of worry is 6 simple words. What if it all works out? Ask it again and you step on the second rung. What if it all works out? Again, and you're on the third rung. Ask it repeatedly about the same problem, and it's like climbing up the ladder. And before you know it, the ladder, what if it all works out, has got you up so high, you are out of the hole of worry, and you have a completely different view of the situation. Listen, there will always be things that come out of nowhere. We can't stop the outside world. We can't stop the fact that you are probably going to worry about something every day. I mean, hello, global pandemic. People get sick. People say they don't want to be married. Jobs get taken away. The stock market drops. Shit happens. It's easy and normal to feel knocked down by life. But you can always use these 6 magical words to help you ride the ups and downs in life. What if it all works out? Doesn't mean it's going to work out today. One of the reasons why your brain loves the sentence, what if it all works out, is you haven't put a deadline at the end of it. The fact that you're saying, well, what if it all works out, automatically allows your brain to expand out of the current crisis because you know, based on your life experience, that in the end, over the years, yeah, eventually, it does all work out. And, here's a third reason why these 6 magical words create opportunity, possibility, positivity, and a better situation. And that is because it anchors you in optimism. When you're worried and you say, how will it work out? When is it going to work out? What if it doesn't work out? The how and the when, it narrows your focus. It gets you caught in the worry loop, and it makes your thoughts and your mood spiral tighter and tighter and tighter. The second you say, well, what if it all works out? You just change that one word from how's it going to work out? How's it going to what if it all works out? I mean, come on. And it opens you up. You can just feel the different energy. How's it going to work out? What if it all works out? If you consider that it will all work out, you begin to see multiple paths. How puts the blinders on? It makes things really small. What if it all works out? Opens up the world of alternatives that you have, and it widens the scope. It widens the lens you're looking through, making room for better things to happen. The next time you hear yourself say, what if, and you start bracing for the worst, instead, just insert your new magic words. What if it all works out? What if this turns out to be the best decision I've ever made? What if I look back 6 months from now and this, right now, this was the moment I found the courage to be myself? What if I'm stronger and more resilient than I think? What if something amazing is happening and I just need to believe it? That last one is everything. I do believe something amazing is happening for you. I do believe that you are stronger and more resilient than you think. It will work out for you.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.